Guys, those of you in the stream, welcome. Thanks for coming to this week's weekly update, where we talk about the hot topics in gaming that's happened this week and in the future of gaming. Up there is Lano, and then right above me is Irish, and right over there is Skill. And today we have a Destiny-packed weekly update. Seems like Destiny is always in the news. I wonder why.
The only thing that's relevant,
right? But and we got a lot to talk about. Destiny dropped the ban hammer this week. That was pretty epic. There was some hot news on Reddit that's kind of tinfoil hat-ish. And I know Irish, you had some information from Microsoft. We'll go ahead and start with that.
Yeah. Phil Spencer here at the this weekend at the China Joy event expressed his little bit of what Microsoft's game plan is going to be long term here. And what they're going to do is, and I'll just read his quote verbatim here, "My strategy is more around our own first-party franchises and investing in franchises that we own and probably fewer exclusive deals for third-party content. I want to have strong third-party relations, but paying for many third-party exclusives is not our long-term goal." And that's an interesting thing because right now, Sony's on top right now, and Sony's doing the exact opposite. They're investing in third-party exclusives for their long-term business plan, and Microsoft's taking this route where they're going to focus on Halo, they're going to focus on Gears, they're going to focus on Forza, Fable. All their first-party games are going to be now their number one priority, and developing new first-party games are going to be their number one priority. So I just wanted to hear the panel's opinions on what this is for both Microsoft and Sony, respectively.
Well, honestly, I'm the guy that smells roses and asks where's the funeral. You know what I mean? And what this sounds to me like is this is another ploy for Microsoft to get sales on their console. They're investing only in these games that are going to be pretty much exclusively on their own console, which makes them eventually, if someone wants to play this game enough, they're going to come over. You know what I'm saying? They're going to buy the second console to play, which to me, it's not a good way to pursue it because most of the time these games aren't good enough to actually to make the commitment to the other console.
I don't see a problem with it, honestly. I just think it means that the first party or whatever you want to call it games are, hopefully they're going to be even better because if you're trying to steer away from, the third party or, from, I guess how I understand it is they're trying to go away from the universal games that are, playable on both consoles, which... Yeah.
Just exclusives.
Just exclusives?
Yeah, for example, I know Lano talked about it here last podcast, but Tomb Raider is got a year-long exclusive third party with Xbox, and that's got to be a crap ton of money. So it's just not going to be things like what you see for what we used to have, what Microsoft used to have for Call of Duty, which was like a month or two exclusive. Or in this case, Tomb Raider's year-long, that's going to be no more. So they're not going to shell out money to keep a third party on their console.
I think that's, I don't see it hurting the console itself. Honestly, I think that just needs to be done away with, period. Like, I don't understand, why, we're going to, pay extra money to try and entice people to, buy a console or use our console first. Like, I don't find that relevant, but
well, dude, that's the marketing scheme. Look at the people that will line up at midnight to get a game first and get home and level up, and the hype around all that. That is the scheme. That's what will push people over the edge. They've been thinking about getting one. They wanted one. Now they dropped the price $50, and now, oh man, I can get early access on Call of Duty or get exclusives. That's exactly what is the things that push people over the edge to buy consoles.
I think what we're seeing honestly is a shift in phase. I think phase one, where we're probably in phase two, is try to focus on exclusives. Secure some big titles, and they have their own. But then I think securing Tomb Raider was like part of kind of phase two. But I think what we're seeing is, especially after this holiday season, you're going to see a shift in focus because backwards compatibility in Halo and Gears of War are going to basically bring over all those 360 guys. We've talked about this before. And I think all those guys are going to come over, and I think Xbox is going to hit a better saturation of the market with consoles. Well, once that happens, the paying lots of money for exclusivities becomes less viable and less lucrative. Like, I don't really even think the Tomb Raider exclusive is going to be that good for return of investment. I mean, we may have to wait and see. So I think what you're seeing now is that's not nearly as important. Once the saturation of the Xbox is in the market, then you want to focus on first-party titles because now you're not trying to sell consoles anymore. You're trying to sell games. You're trying to sell content and perks. And so I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a shift in focus as a business and honestly, I don't think you could sustain it. I don't think you could sustain whatever they had to pay for the Tomb Raider exclusive because the profit margins on consoles is always razor thin. They almost usually don't make money on the console itself. So even paying all that money and maybe hoping to generate console sales with Tomb Raider, not only do I think it's kind of stupid, I don't think you're going to make much money regardless. So I think we're seeing a shift in the phase of the Xbox to now focus on the established consumer base as opposed to trying to woo would-be console buyers because they know most people are going to be settled. Beginning of 2016, most people are going to have the console that they want for the next 5 or 6 years.
So then the last question from this I'll post out is because PS4 is doing the opposite. Sony's doing the opposite here. They're focusing more on their third-party exclusives. As we saw this E3, they got a deal with for Black Ops 3. They got a new deal for Street Fighter 5. And of course, they have Destiny into their pocket as well. So, with Microsoft going first party and Sony sticking with third party for the long term, what's the opinion on that? Sony sticking third party.
It sounds to me like Sony is following their business plan and it's working for them. Like Lano said, now Sony's moved into phase 2, and their goal is to sell games. They have the majority of the market, and they want to make them happy and keep them on their console. Thus, you go after the big titles, the big names, the things that are going to be popular 6 months after they come out, not 6 days after they come out. Tomb Raider, it's a very small market compared to the majority. And generally, the games with the multiplayer, mass multiplayer, and competitive aspects are the one that have longevity, not, look at all the car games that Xbox gets, and they don't, they have a die-hard community, but it's just marginal compared to Call of Duty, compared to Destiny, And to me, these are things that make me want to go and buy a console that I don't have. Yep. And I'm a multiplayer guy, competitive, shooting people and raiding and all that. That's me, and that's what they have exclusives on.
Well, see, my thing is, and this is just maybe 1% of the thought process here, but and again, it's just my opinion. But I think if you look at, like you said, you're a multiplayer guy. Me too. I'm a multiplayer. I'm really competitive, and I think that the competitive games, the eSports games, they're all Microsoft. They always have been, and I think it's one of the things that Microsoft, I guess, has the niche community in. Because other than Call of Duty, but Call of Duty's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of wishy-washy. But I think, the majority of the competitive games outside of PC are on the Xbox, and I think that's what Microsoft has going for them. And I think in the long run, money-wise, that might sustain them in losing the whatever you call it, third-party exclusives or whatever.
Yeah, I think Skill's got it. I mean, I think Sony's leveraging their weight. They're throwing their weight around. They're the big gorilla. It's like, hey, we got the most saturation, so we've got more money to throw at these companies, and just to entrench. I really do think it's more about entrenching loyalty too. Like, if you're a PlayStation owner, you're like, man, look at all this sweet stuff we get. We get all the stuff early. We get the content early. I also think, like, Microsoft responded to the Black Ops exclusivity, and they kind of shrugged it off. They were like, we have the largest, more people play Call of Duty on the Xbox than on the PlayStation. So they were like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I think Sony's mindset, though, is, yeah, well, maybe that'll start to change, because if we've got like 5-to-1 consoles in the market compared to the Xbox, and there's these reasons we're trying to woo people into, like, hey, try out Call of Duty, look at all the cool extra stuff you get, same with Destiny. Look, you get stuff early, and I think Skill's right. I think if you compare those titles to, like, a Tomb Raider, it's like way more people are going to be buying and playing Black Ops 3 and Destiny compared to Tomb Raider. Right. So I think that, yeah, I think in 3 or 4 years, you're going to see it really pay off for Sony. I don't think Xbox is down and out. I think this Christmas, you're going to see the gap close significantly because of backwards compatibility and Halo and Gears. That's going to be kind of a monsoon of new console purchases. But I do think you're going to see Sony be the dominant console because of this. I mean, I could be completely wrong. First-party titles, that could pay off for Microsoft if you think about it, because if that's the only place you can get it, that might be Microsoft's sort of niche of like, hey, this is the only place you can get these games. Yeah, Sony, you can get the stuff early. Well, big whoop, wait 6 months. I mean, we've got we're the only ones that have these games. That relationship with Rare could tilt things. The competition's just thrilling, right? I mean, we benefit as gamers.
Well, we had a question in the chat, and it was, do you think now that Sony is the powerhouse, can they sway the eSports over to their console based on this? And I think it can happen. MLG signs contracts with these companies. I believe when they signed the contract with Xbox, it was for 10 mil, right? So I think maybe when this next contract comes up, Sony will have the bucks to just outbuy Microsoft.
I don't think it's gonna happen. Microsoft is the staple in console esports. I mean, Sony might have a better system. I can't really say because I don't own a PlayStation, and I would just be going off speculation of what everybody says. The PlayStation is, I guess, a little bit more powerful or whatnot. And from what I understand, I'm not sure. I think it was Drifter that said it. That PlayStation's LAN capabilities are a lot easier to set up than Microsoft's. But Microsoft is also really good at being like, okay, well, if we're having a problem, we're going to fix it.
Here's an update. Microsoft is a software company.
Yeah, so they're really good about fixing those things, and I think if that's a concern, then they're obviously going to fix it. But it hasn't been a real concern yet. And I just think that Microsoft is I don't want to say the more trustworthy, but I mean, how often does PSN go down?
I think it would just be a real hard thing to sell because when it becomes entrenched. I think controllers would play a part. Like, if you're an MLG guy and you're used to that, you cannot do as well. I mean, there'd be a definite growing pains period. On the topic of which console is stronger, the guys that are developing Arc actually kind of let it out of the bag. Sony's been pretty tight-lipped about their CPU. Their GPU, the graphics processing unit, is stronger than the Xbox One. But when you compare the CPUs, the guys developing Arc said Xbox One CPU is stronger, which is actually helping in the development of Arc because of the rendering that they have to throw at the CPU. But then he said, well, but the Sony's GPU is stronger, so it levels it out. So the reality is that there's all this, we see the textures and lighting comparisons. We're like, oh, the Sony's better. Well, there's a reason Tomb Raider didn't run as well with frame rate issues because they threw too much at it and the CPU's not quite as strong. So I think in the long run, you're going to start to see some of the games look closer. I think now that the developers are learning how to rein the systems in a bit, like I think Ark will probably be the game to really look at and scrutinize. Like, okay, it looks the same on both systems. Maybe that debate can go away. I don't think that's the important debate to have. I think the
I think that
to have
debate.
is,
I mean,
what are
at
the
that
titles
point,
you
you're
can
tossing
buy?
pennies. I mean,
Right. What are the titles you can buy? Which is why I think that the marketing strategy of both companies is so interesting. They're moving away from talking about graphics because I think with DirectX 12 coming to Xbox, they're gonna be able to boost some of the texture mapping and things to make it look a lot better. I just think the graphics debate's going to go away, and it's going to be more about the titles you can buy because ultimately the graphics hype fades, and it's like, what can I freaking play? I don't care if the lighting looks amazing. And
Right.
and that's good for gamers because we want titles. We don't. I mean, graphics are cool and all, but man, I want something
Well,
that's fun.
honestly, like when people compare the graphics, like I see such minuscule differences. I'm like, it's not even
minor.
relevant. Like,
Right.
oh, there's one
You
extra
usually do
pixel
the
or something.
lighting,
I'm
to be
like,
honest.
Yeah, it's almost always lighting. Witcher 3, it all looked like different lighting to me. It didn't look like anything other than that.
And regarding the esports question we had, I think you saw Microsoft make a little bit of a vie to entrench their esports community when they announced that Elite controller, because that's not necessarily designed for the casual of the bunch.
Oh, I
I,
think
I know a lot of esports guys and shooters right now that are very hyped about that controller and are really excited about Microsoft's move to that. And I think what Lionel said, yeah, they're entrenched. It's very hard. It's kind of like breaking a habit. You'd have to break an entire habit of playing on one console to move to an esports on a different console.
Well,
And the other thing I'll point out regarding esports on consoles right now is that Call of Duty's dying off a little bit, and I think when Halo 5 launches, it'll overtake Call of Duty,
yeah.
and that'll be a big bonus for
Well,
Microsoft because it's an exclusive.
One
Yeah.
thing is that you got to look outside of just Xbox and Sony on esports. All these companies, Scuff, Cinch, Battle Beaver or Beaver, whatever, those guys, all these other accessory sponsorships and stuff. They would have to shell out a lot of money to switch their sponsored players, from Xbox to play. They got to get all new controllers, all new, controller accessories, all this
Yeah.
stuff that they'd have to switch over, and that costs them money too. So it's
Yeah.
like it's not just the consoles; it's getting the players, accustomed to different controllers, which I'm sure they probably both have both systems anyway. I don't think that would be a huge deal. But all these other companies that are involved in it too, it's going to wreck them financially as well. And it's kind of a big deal to just switch like that. Now,
all the major companies that I know of make PlayStation
they
controllers
do.
for competitive gaming with the paddles and everything.
Yeah,
And the thing is, though, it's really where the tournaments, who is opening these $1 million tournaments and whatnot, and what console is it supported on?
Yeah.
well, I mean,
I believe, I kind of do think that PlayStation has the power to not, like, they could circumvent MLG and have their own tournament that they hold on for Call of Duty for $1 million on PlayStation.
Yeah, maybe. Because I was just getting ready to say, I don't think any of the incentives for Black Ops 3 are going to sway any MLG guys. Like, it's just,
No.
it doesn't, none of it matters ultimately in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, Skill might be right, though. Sony could look to maybe edge in and create their own thing if they start to somehow capture a larger Call of Duty audience. I don't think so. I honestly think when the cards and everything shakes out, I still think Microsoft's going to come out way ahead with Call of Duty engagement numbers. That franchise is so... The zombie guys, especially because it's Black Ops 3, I think there's just such a bigger pool there. I don't see a lot of people being like, well, I'm going to switch to PlayStation to get some aesthetic stuff early.
Well, I mean, you could look at that right now and just go to game battles and look at the ladders, for whatever's out now, Advanced Warfare, and see, which side is... Well, obviously it's probably Microsoft because that's where competitive's at right now. But when Black Ops 3 comes out, you can just go and look at how many teams or players are signed up on the ladders. It tells you right there how many teams there are. And that would be, enough right there to tell you if there's more still on Xbox than PlayStation, then, Xbox probably did end up getting the better end of that deal if it still turns out to be that way. But yeah, as far as, like when we're still talking about the competitive or esports, Obviously, Smite just came to Xbox. And then we have World of Tanks just came to Xbox. So these PC MOBAs are kind of, I don't want to say transitioning, but adding the console, and they're adding the Xbox over PlayStation. Neither of them could have went to PlayStation, but they didn't for whatever reason. I don't know if it was a deal with Microsoft or what it was, but and you could probably expect a few more to start showing up too. Whether it's other games like Neverwinter or things like that have competitive and eSports side that are kind of, I don't know, I'd say a double A game versus a triple A.
I think in that term it'll be rough because MOBAs are deeply entrenched on PC. Even Smite's community is mostly PC.
Right, but the transition's good. Like I'm not taking away from PC. Like obviously PC MOBAs are number one, and I don't think that'll ever change. But I think, transitioning those games, like I played Smite on PC when I first heard about it. I didn't play it like often or anything. And then I played it on Xbox, and it seemed to work really well. And, the aspect and, everything about it was, pretty spot on. So it can be done, and it's being done successfully too. So I could see a lot more of it coming, and probably coming to Microsoft more than I would see it going to PlayStation.
Guess I should throw a shout out to our Sovereign team on Smite, finishing in the top 8
they
today.
just took the top 8. I don't know what it was, but it was in the top 8 for the
1K tournament championship.
yeah, the Smite 1K tournament on MLG. That was pretty cool of them.
Our next topic is the banhammer of Destiny.
Ooh.
Bruce, why don't you take that away?
Yeah, well, is what happened. So Bungie warned everybody that the banhammer was coming. They're like, we're about to swing it, we're winding it up, and it's like, we're swinging it today. And then all of a sudden, well, first of all, it kind of started on Reddit, and then people were like, no, don't post that crap here. So I was like, well, where are they posting this? Like, I gotta see this. So you go to the Bungie Net forums over in the help section, and it's just flooded top to bottom. Why was I banned? Why was I banned? Ban this, ban that. And the things that these people were saying, absolutely the funniest things that I've ever heard. Some guy mentioned, like, it was his sick brother with some weird disease that I've only ever heard of on, like, Oregon trails. Had, like, a bad connection or something. People were saying, like, oh, well, my connection's outsourced from Nigeria, and it's real bad, and that, I lag out of games a lot. It's not my fault. And, guys were on there like, I've never done anything like that. I got kicked out of a game one time 6 years ago. Like, come on. And then these other guys, I don't know if they were just hardcore players or they were just really trying to, stomp these guys, but they were digging through their stats. On their Bungie account, it shows their game stats, and then you can get their gamer tag, and then you can go to Destiny Tracker, and you could look up real detailed information on their games, like how many kills, assists, all this stuff. And these people were just getting burnt alive. People were like, oh, well, you won 19 games with 0 kills and 0 deaths. Like, how do you do that? And they're like, oh, well, I just, I lagged out or lost connection. And it's like, well, you don't get a win for that, So these people were getting just flamed by the community. And it was literally the greatest day. I spent 5 hours at work just reading these, laughing hysterically, because it was so satisfying to know that, those reported players and all that was actually finally, the karma train came around, and it was glorious.
Well,
Go ahead, Skill.
Well, as a competitive player, that I love winning, and I actually love losing if it's a good game and it's a close game. And the worst thing is to get a loss in a game because somebody's cheating or manipulating the system, right? And for me, it's a great thing because I automatically can kind of take that little variable out of the equation of success in multiplayer now. But the thing is what a lot of people didn't realize was you're going to get banned if you participated enough that they had definitive results that you were cheating. So in trials, say your teammate was the one doing the lagging out or the red barring and whatnot, and you were just riding along for the for the free wins, then that's pretty much the same thing as cheating. You were getting the same result as being the person lagging people out. And I think that's where a lot of those, I wasn't a cheater, you know, I just woke up and my account was banned. But even then, I read a post where a guy had posted all his stats, and he was participating in each game. It was just every time that they were on an elimination game, it lagged them out, and they didn't lose. They didn't get the loss. But they could eliminate other teams when it was their game point. It was every game that they were about to lose, they would lag out and get a win. And what was happening was they were lagging the other team out, making them quit out, which would give them the automatic win. Mm-hmm. And it was really satisfying kind of to see these people finally getting what they deserve. Mm-hmm. But the sad thing is it's a temporary ban.
Yeah.
It's not like they're gone forever. This is just, we're teaching you a lesson. Don't do it again. Kind of thing.
Somebody mentioned in one of these posts or on the Bungie forums that they should do what Titanfall did, because Titanfall, there's no messing around. It's you get caught once, then you're automatically put into like a bottom feeder lobby, like you're locked into it. So the only people that you can play with are other cheaters. Like they don't ban you from playing. It's just you can only play with these other people that have been labeled cheaters. I think that's what they really should do. Is you don't have to ban them, but they're just going to put you with these other awful people that are just like you.
Well, being an avid Halo 2 player, back with Halo, Bungie came and dropped the ban hammer for the first time on all the standbyers. Standbying was the worst problem in Halo 2. And what immediately preceded that is the ban hammer is cocked and ready to drop on the first time you try to do it after that initial ban hammering. They had a quantity of people from I think a 6-week span of data or something like that. So if you cheated in the last 6 weeks, you were in this group of people that got banned. But now, if it's going to be in this Halo 2 fashion, anybody that tries to ban or try to cheat after this point will immediately get banned. It's not going to be set to the certain date where, okay, now we're going to get them. It's going to just happen immediately. And I'm really interested to see if that's going to follow suit, because that's exactly the way they did it in Halo 2.
It'd be nice.
I think it's funny because it's almost like these people are stupid. Like, you don't know the game you're playing. Like, Destiny tracks everything.
Yeah.
So the margin of error is incredibly small here. There's almost assuredly nobody that got banned wrongfully. Like, there's just no way, because they always say these are the worst of the worst. These people, and like you said, the guys are posting their stats, and they always benefit. The thing these people should really be grateful for is the fact that the ones that they know were doing things like DDoS, like lagging out the other team, that's illegal. So it's almost like you should be counting your freaking precious pennies that you're not sitting in a jail cell or having the feds knocking on your door, because you're not allowed to do that, according to the law. That has nothing to do with Bungie or Destiny. So they should be glad it's a temporary ban and that they're not facing any kind of criminal charges, because this stuff is serious. And you're going to see this happen more and more. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 years from now we're starting to see kids in handcuffs and lawsuits and stuff, because they with the swatting, right? I mean, mm-hmm. I think they should just be happy that they can't play for a little while, because it's one thing to lag switch, it's another thing to DDoS another team. That's a serious thing that I think some of these kids just don't know the severity of what they're doing. So I'm with Skill. I hope that the next swing is permanent, and and just get them out of there, because it's bad for all gaming. I mean, the introduction of lag compensation in Black Ops 2 blew up the throttling your connection lag switch thing, because you would get the benefit of lag compensation by doing that. Any game you play now, you see these guys, whether it's Battlefield or Titanfall. Dedicated servers does do away with it, though. They skip around a little bit, but you still can kill them. It's not quite the same when it's peer-to-peer. They get a much heavier advantage. So I'm happy about it. I don't even play PvP, and when I saw it, I was like, sweet justice, get them out of here.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, I paid my money. I should be able to play. And it's like, well, correctly, yes, but whenever you manipulate the game that you bought, then no, you should. It's a privilege, not a right.
Well, and this might be controversial, but I was going to say this too. That let's say that there's a handful of people that just have horrible internet and they got swept up in this. I'm kind of okay with that. I honestly think if your connection is so bad that you break the game, you shouldn't be allowed to play. Like, I'm sorry, but like in this day and age, like that's just the nature of it. You're breaking the game. Your internet's so bad, you're ruining the experience of other players. You should be disallowed from playing.
Well,
maybe not something as severe as banning them from the entire game, but I don't know how else you do it.
Especially since these games are becoming more and more online dependent as we move through the generations of games here.
Well,
but also, in response to what Lionel's saying, DDoS, that's illegal, and it's not too hard from Bungie. If they have the data to ban you, they almost have the data to prove that you're rocking DDoS. All they have to do that is turn that over to the feds, and that's easy. Like if they do it again, if they do it in Halo 2 style and they do a permaban, I would almost encourage Bungie to hand over the data of all the DDoS cheaters and just let the feds take at it, because the feds are going more and more on these hacker stuff right now, and it, like Lionel said, Bungie tracks everything. It's not that hard to lock down if you're a DDoS and you're lagging the other team out. It's
well,
not that
hopefully,
hard.
in the long run, hopefully just the servers in general are stronger because there aren't so many lag problems. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that hopefully that means when you go play PvP, it's a better connection because you're playing with people with strong enough connections that they're not lagging out enough to get banned.
Well, I think that they should still implement, that same, Titanfall system or whatever. Like, if you're consistently labeled with a bad connection, like whenever you report a player, you can report them as highly skilled, which I think is funny. And it's like legit, like it's, a compliment. It's not like trolling or anything. Like, you can report them as they're really good. And then you can go all the way down to, cheating, or you can just report that they have a horrible connection. And I think those that get, consistently reported as a horrible connection should be investigated. And if they do, then they should be limited to only playing with other horrible connected people. And I think, because why should we have to suffer through that just because their internet's routed through Uganda and they live in Alaska? I don't, that's not my fault. I didn't ask for that. Like, why are you going to run my experience? And I'm not trying to be, an elitist or anything. I'm just saying that.
It does break the game.
It does break the game. That's my point. And I think that might be the way to do it, is that if you don't know enough to know whether or not it's sinister, then put them in and be like, here you go, Mr.
Well,
your internet's powered by a goat, like running in a treadmill. Like, then you get to play with other people with that bad of internet, because you don't get to ruin everybody else's experience.
Well, let me tell you though, Bungie, as a person that had a horrible connection for the longest time with Bungie, I would get booted consistently, like once every 3 games, just kicked out, for no reason.
Annoying.
But the thing was, I always got an error code for it. You know what I mean? And that way Bungie knew at least why I was lagging out, not because I was manipulating the system. So honestly think that fraction of the people that are saying, oh, it's my connection why I got banned, well, as a person that was getting booted all the time, they knew I wasn't cheating when I was getting lagged out at least. So
yeah, we were lucky to even just have you through the one match. Like, we were excited if you.
It was weird because I could be in an Xbox Live party and it wouldn't drop me from that, but I would just get dropped from the games. And I could even tell my teammates, oh, I just got booted. Restarting.
Yep. But
Alright, so I think we should move on to the next Destiny topic, which involves Reddit. So Lana, why don't you take that one away?
Yeah, so there's a leak on Reddit about what is going on with the future of Destiny with respect to Destiny 2 is going to be called Shattered Suns or something like that, and they're going to do away with paid DLC, and like the guy basically gives this bullet point rundown of things he's extrapolated from conversations that he's had with people that are either on the inside of Destiny, like Bungie, or testing of the game. And so it got crazy traction. It seemed very plausible. I actually theorized that Destiny 2, our light levels would be reset, and they're going to weave into the story that we lose our light, and then that's how they're going to kind of like let you keep your gear but lower it, and then kind of be like almost like a reset. So when I saw the name Shattered Suns, I was like, maybe I'm right. But then it's like this is probably bogus. Like it's real easy. I think Paul Tassi, he's a guy at Forbes. He's usually dead on target when he criticizes Bungie and Destiny. He basically said most of this could be extrapolated from lore, or if you're just watching trailers, like, oh, some of the enemies are going to have super moves just like the Titans, and just different things like that I think you can kind of pick up from the trailers. So I can share my thoughts once we've batted it around about why I think this sort of thing gets so much quick traction, but we can talk about whether or not they'll do away with paid DLC, how that would look, and what everybody else thought about the league.
Yeah, I think that they said, or this article claimed that Bungie was going to do away with paid DLC, and my first thought was, well, it'd be smart, and then my second thought is, wait, Activision's in this, that's not possible. I was like, Activision is the Uncle Scrooge of video games, like that, it won't happen. And then I was sitting here thinking, like, well, maybe there's, one side's here, so there's got to be a middle. And my thought is, if this were to be true, hypothetically, then it would likely be like a micro DLC. Like, if they want to bust out, okay, well, here, you can have this moon, we're going to tide you over with this moon, and give you a couple story missions, some new patrols, maybe a PvP map or something. That's not too much content, to really hurt them. It's enough, to be labeled as free, but it's not enough to break them, for cost-wise. And I think it'd be enough to, tide everybody over in between real DLCs. Instead of we got to wait 5 months for a DLC when, we blow through the content. Well, the hardcore players blow through the content pretty quick. So I think doing something like that might be feasible, and might be, hypothetically, if it were true, that's likely what it would be. But then again, it is Activision, so.
Right.
Well, so big games have generally subscription-based games like World of Warcraft and Star Wars and all those games that people are willing to pay to get content either monthly or bi-monthly and things like that. And the DLCs, like if it's a major DLC, they'll pay for it. But generally, those games have things that are, Christmas time, they'll change the environment, and Halloween, they'll do something, and, to keep people playing through the lulls of DLC.
Yeah.
This is where console gaming, where we're not paying Bungie a subscription to keep giving us stuff, and make sure cheaters get banned and make sure that the servers are great. But we're pretty much paying the DLC price to get that the entire year, And now we're going to go buy Destiny 2 and start that process over. I don't see free DLC being a good thing unless it's bundled with a, because we're going to pay $40 for this DLC, we're going to include 3 month, 3 things each month that will come in between DLCs, major blocks of content. And the thing is what I can consistently see on Destiny is every time a DLC comes out, everybody hops back on Destiny. My friends list is filled with everybody playing Destiny. 2 weeks go by, it's about halfway back to normal, where it's like those other players that aren't hardcore Destiny players went back to the other things that they casually play. And then about 2 months after a DLC, it's dead. You know what I mean? It's one player playing PvP by himself on your friends list. And it's one of those things that's like, I emphasize that if you want that content year round, there's generally got to be a fee. You know what I mean? And whether that's buying DLCs every 3 months or 4 months, you know what I mean? Or paying a $10 subscription fee for 4 months of content, it pretty much works itself out. That's how Activision's kind of got us on a subscription, even though we're not paying a subscription. So I don't see that honestly can work out that way. But the problem with it is that, once again, they could probably do some marketing schemes to figure out if people would pay for a subscription instead of paying for DLC. And that would be like the first leap on console, of, oh, I'm going to have a console, I'm going to pay for Xbox Live, and I'm going to pay a game company to keep the game relevant. And that, to me, I hope that happens. I'm one of the people that would pay $10 a month or something for a game to be really interactive with the community and changing and whatnot.
I think that would be, in theory, I like the idea. I just think that'd be really hard to implement on console, because it's basically because like on PC, you can just powerhouse update it or whatever, but on console, we all know it updates. Large updates aren't exactly the fastest thing, and I mean, again, it comes down to your connection as well, but. Some of those, updates, like whenever you download a game or whatever, it can take forever. So, I don't know, the larger updates are like that, like, from World of Warcraft, I think would be time consuming. Not that, most people would really care, but I think that's something they'd have to really consider is how much downtime would there be, having these constant updates all the time.
Well, a lot of them could be invisible updates, you know what I mean? Where a lot of people get updates on the console when they're off anyways, but they are getting, the technology is getting better for the pre-download. You can now download a game, and then at a certain period of time, it's available to play.
That's
so
true.
I think
that is true, because we did that with World of Tanks. We were able to pre-download it.
My theory on this matter is, if this was just a fan that procured this, then that it's just a bunch of smoke and mirror and happy hopes and dreams, because I don't think that will ever happen on Activision's watch, or else we would have seen it earlier to appease their Call of Duty fan base. It's going to come down a lot to, when we take a look at things, it's going to come down a lot to Taken King. We've gotten a lot of vague descriptions on Taken King. And if Taken King ends up being lackluster in content in certain areas or in all areas, then plus on top of that, taking a look at the statistics of just how much money they make off of Taken King, you're really going to see the true eyes of what's going to happen. Because if they make a lot of money off of Taken King, and Taken King is lackluster in content, and this is another DLC of Destiny that disappoints, then I don't think you'll ever see Activision and Bungie ever staying away from a DLC, because like Skill here said, your friends list lights up when Destiny gets new content. So right now we've gone through 2 DLCs where it's been lackluster, and they've sold it by the mountain load, but only for people to be done with it in 2 weeks worth of content. Now, supposedly Taken King is supposed to be much larger, but if it's still lackluster, it's not going to be a long-term sustaining DLC, but it will make them exponentially amount of money if the whole friends list lights up again, kind of concept deal. So, this thing about micro DLC, the this and that, my tinfoil hat is always on when we talk about Destiny here. It's like, it's kind of, you can't expect that. And I think when we see Taken King, we'll really have our set in beliefs of where Destiny is going and how things are really, really being handled. I mean, we have a pretty good conspiracy theory of how things are being handled about Destiny now. Taken King will prove one way or the other, I'm sure. But or my second theory is, and this is really tinfoil hat, that Activision or someone in Bungie posted that as a little PR scheme to get a little bit of more hype going in this downtime for Destiny before Taken King comes out. Kind of throw up the hopes and dreams of the community. I don't know, it could go either way.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like on the far end of the spectrum. This could be intentional, but I think a very easy thing that we can all agree on is that this sort of thing gets traction because Bungie by design doesn't give us lots of information, and so the community is so starved for information. Like what's going to happen? They set records when they do a Twitch stream about like DLC. Like what? Like, are you serious? I mean, no other content would probably, no other game company would do that. But because people are so starved, it's like, here's a bunch of spurious, random kind of vague things about what's coming in the future of Destiny on Reddit, and everybody latches onto it like crazy. Now, I don't think it's outside of the scope of reason to think that like we could start to see PvE events and content injections similar to Iron Banner to piecemeal things and kind of string things along, so there isn't this big drought in between DLCs. But what I think we're seeing with what we know so far, all we know is that they gave us that outline where they said the largest injection of guns, gear, and talents. So that's worrying, because it's like, why aren't you saying it's the largest injection of like playable content? You're attaching that to guns, gear, and talents. And then the second thing they've done is, like, their very first update after that was all about the guns. So it's like they're clearly trying to drive that as the message and theme, is like guns, guns, guns. And then this recent update about like, let's go on a patrol through the Dreadnought or whatever, they're just doing the same thing when they talked about the bounties. They're talking about how mechanics are going to behave differently. Like, you're going to want to go back through the same areas because there might be loot that you could find. That's worrying. Well, what, huh? So you're weaving more repetition into the new content? You're just telling us on the outset, and then, oh, the patrols will be a little bit harder and there'll be mini-bosses. Well, that's kind of cool, but again, that's about mechanics. That's not about how much content we're going to get. And that's the big problem, is nobody really ever sniffs out those details. Everybody tells me that you're reading too much into it. Oh, well, we'll just wait and see, bros. $40, everything
Right.
they've said so far? No.
Well,
I don't think so.
One thing that
Like
I heard that was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure if I'm taking this too literal or what, but one thing that I heard was that on either some of those patrols, like when you're patrolling the Dreadnought or whatever, there's certain like things like raid-ish like things that you'd have to do, like do a certain events or sequences to unlock different areas for different loots and stuff, and they claim that it'll take you likely a couple months to figure all of it out, which that if
Yeah.
true would be actually really fun.
That was one thing I read that I thought was exciting, but then again, you just have to kind of say, well, wait a minute, what kind of game is Destiny? Like, all the stuff they said about House of Wolves, once you sort of see it in practice, you're just kind of like, this isn't exactly the impression I was given. So when I hear that, Moose, I'm like, okay, that's exciting, but then I'm also kind of like, so we're going to be running around the same area over and over again, trying to solve puzzles for loot. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The playable content is still narrow, but what's big? What's the big thing you're going for? It's just loot. It's all gear loot based,
Right.
which is fine. Paul Tassi has a great post about how Destiny's a lot like Pokemon, but because you're going after loot and you're doing the same things over and over and over again to go after the loot. So again, that's all mechanics based. That's not about here's all this great, awesome content. They're very, very brilliant about reworking existing content, like that. Oh, well, these linear paths you take through one mission and then you go back a different way, and you're like, this looks familiar, wait a minute, and it feels different. I got to applaud them for that. I mean, they get a lot of capital out of their development, but I'm just saying, everything they're saying up to this point has me worried that it's going to be narrow, repetitious, and so gear based that people are going to be like, I paid $40 for this. Like, I don't know.
Well, I'm always worried whenever the game doesn't advertise their game. Like how do you expect people to want your game? Like, I understand their style of hype, if you want to call, where you're real vague and you're real confident.
Smoke and mirrors.
People are like, oh wow, whatever, and that worked in the beginning for vanilla Destiny launch. That worked. And it was amazing.
It works now. It works now, though. When they set the Twitch record, that's something that gets them in magazines and gets them on, in the Wall Street Journal, and they have Forbes talking about them,
But when
right?
they do that, they did that for
It's
regular Destiny,
working.
and it worked. They did that for the Dark Below, and it worked. And they did do it for the Taken King, or House of Wolves, and it worked, but you can tell that people are starting to catch on. They're like, well, everyone knows that those 3, they were hyped and they didn't have content. And so I think if they continue with that, people are going to get smart. And they're going to be like, well, yeah, that you showed us, but this is probably literally it. So...
I think we'll just see from Bungie and Activision is they'll start throwing out cinematics, maybe TV spots for Taken King, like they've done for Black Ops in the past on their DLC. And let's be honest, when we all looked at Destiny, their cinematics that they threw out, their trailers, they threw up the hype train like nobody's business.
Well, is what I think they're going to have to do.
Cinematics have a great way of doing that, and I think there's always going to be a portion of the community that's susceptible to such hype, showing off in a cinematic trailer, and we all know cinematic trailers never end up looking like the real game, but it still gets you hyped up. But I want to get back to a point I said. It's like Taken King will be crucial for Destiny and Activision and the community in the point that if that releases and it does not hold up, then like all of our little tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff we have here is just a little bit more of a proof. It's going to swing opinion one way or the other. This is the make or break DLC for Destiny.
Well, I think
we're paying $40 for it. This is make or break.
Yeah, if they're going to do those Twitch reveals or whatever, they need to actually do some reveals of content, not just standing around in the tower for an hour talking about randomness or whatever. Like, do a story mission, show us the cinematics, play some PvP, start the raid or whatever,
Well, the House of Wolves Twitch reveal was 50%. Here's what you're gonna get. Look at this cool thing we did with the prison. This is completely new. Yay, yay, yay! And then the other 50% was, oh yeah, by the way, we're fixing all these problems and these broken in-game economies that you guys have been complaining about. I actually think that was kind of smart because I remember watching it thinking, this is all fantastic news. Like, these are all things that the community's been saying, please, please fix this. Don't invalidate our gear. Don't make us basically buy a reset button. What I want to say, though, is I think some of that's going to start to get deflated because I think there was such a large amount of people who had bought the season pass that were like, okay, what the heck am I getting? Because the Dark Below sucked. You know what I'm saying? The Dark Below was basically a raid. That's what you bought. It was a frickin' raid. And so I think a lot of people were like, what am I going to get in the House of Wolves? I don't know if the interest and the intrigue was like, I can't wait for House of Wolves, or if it was more of like, what are you guys actually going to give us because you dropped the ball with Dark Below? So the question is with the Taken King, how many volitional purchases have there been? They're like, well, we've sold out of the collector's editions. Oh, cut the crap. That's that Apple game of like making a small batch and then they sell out to create this demand. I don't buy that they made a lot of those collector's editions anyway. The real question's going to be how many people are actually interested in the Taken King and buying it to the same degree as those who bought the season pass and were like, well, I'm locked in. What are you going to give me? That's the real question. Is because if the community engagement is bad from the outset, from what they're describing, it's going to be bad on the backside as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Like I think we can all agree it's gonna be a make or break season. And
if they don't add inroads too, they're like it's gonna be the longest raid ever. I'm like, you really got to think of ways to do matchmaking. Then I hate to say it, but you've got to think of ways to do matchmaking because Paul Tassie's got a post on it. I got a post on it. LFG is matchmaking. You're just matchmaking off-site. You're making people jump through hoops, and you're making your content less accessible. So I think if you've got a raid that's twice as long or whatever as these other raids, and you don't have matchmaking, the engagement levels are going to be even lower.
Right,
and it's just that's not a bragging right.
Yeah, it's not. I understand their concept of not wanting to matchmake. Oh, we want you to enjoy the content with your friends because listen, there's trolls and there's douchebags everywhere. Destiny, Halo, Call of Duty, every game has its trolls and douchebags. It's a given. We all know that. We've all come to accept it. There are ways to counter it.
Right.
If you do get matchmaked with one of those douchebag trolls, then report them. There's a report button for douchebag trolls. And then eventually they get enough reports. I still think Bungie should do what I originally said. Implement the Tidefall system. They can now only be matchmade with other douchebag trolls. It's a system that works. It's been proven to work. It's not that hard. So I think if they were to do that, do the matchmaking, those solo players, those weekend warriors, all these people that can't enjoy that content already because they either don't have enough friends or whatever, will be able to play that content. And just like in every content, we get the game, and then all of a sudden everyone on our friends list is playing Destiny, and then within a month only 10% of those people are now playing, so you don't have people to play with. So it eliminates that factor as well. And I understand their concept and their reasoning behind the no matchmaking, but I do think that it just doesn't benefit the entire community by doing that.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
I mean, it's really hard not to be skeptical of Destiny at this point. They really haven't done much to prove us otherwise. It's always, to me, it's in the fact when we talk about Destiny and all this stuff that's going on, it's still a little disheartening for me to hear, just because I really had high hopes for this game when it released, and it turned out to be such a huge disappointment. But I've said it multiple times this podcast. It's Taken King, man. If within 2 weeks we'll know how it swings.
Well, let me speculate a little bit on the matchmaking thing. How do you make new friends when you play online? Generally, you have a decent experience with you found a guy with another mic, you agree about something, let's play another game together. Or let's pick up this guy, or I got a friend online too. And that's how those relationships start generally. Me personally, I like playing Elimination during the week when Trials isn't on. And when I play somebody that is really good or has a different style or different gun setup I've never seen, and they were rocking out with it, I want to talk to them and play again with them and whatnot. And I've made more friends being randomly match-made with players that I have similar interests or similar play styles to and things like that. And I think that's how they could get people that would never raid before in a raid, is with a matchmaking system. And how do you make friends? You get matchmaked with them. You don't want to have to go and look LFG, and once you do that, it's just a lot of work that would take away from those weekend warriors ever being able to get in on a raid or getting 6 people together,
Velocity said on the stream that they should add a vote to kick system, which I think is also probably another good idea. If you're going
to introduce the matchmaking on that scale, especially for the raids, you're going to have to introduce something like a vote to kick, because you're going to have those people that just want to troll on a long raid in matchmaking, and it's just going to drive you to the edge of...
Doesn't seem like that would be out of the spectrum of doing, I could easily see them working that into the click on their gamer tag, inspect details, vote to kick, and then you click green box, red box, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I definitely think that should be a thing, and for me, most of the time we have 4 to 5 guys ready to roll, and we got to try to bring in those other 2 people, right? What if we could start a raid with 4 people, get match made with 2 to fill our spots, and that way we could do what we want to do, which is the raid, get the people we need to get, they get to go through a raid with you, which are 4, most of the time my friends already know how to participate in the raids, and at this point we're so good, we go into Vault of Glass, and I have a speech that I give for everybody in the party so that they know everything that's going to happen for each encounter when we get there. And that's exactly how you could have it in matchmaking, is, the most experienced player generally will tell everybody what to do. Now, I think they should definitely matchmake with people with microphones exclusively for raiding. If you don't plug in your connector, if you don't plug in your microphone, it won't matchmake you, sorry. But that would definitely be cool.
I mean, that's essentially what I said when I wrote about it. I said, I think more people would be like, I think a lot of people sort of take pride in carrying people through something like that. It's fun to take a new person through. I mean, I tried to do Crota's Raid on my stream, and I had guys that could not get past the second lamp without dying. and it was not a lack of skill. These guys had max level characters and max level gear. They were inexperienced. They just hadn't played the content enough, so they didn't know what was going on. They didn't have the rhythms. And I just thought to myself, had there been some stinking matchmaking, these guys could have been jumping in and out of raids all this time, slowly getting experience, slowly learning how it works, instead of they get thrown in with me and they don't know what they're doing. Well, guess what? I shut it down after 3 tries. It's like, guys, I don't really want to do it to begin with, and so we can't get past the second lamp. I'm not going to stream this. This is garbage. An LFG group would have done the same thing. They would have dropped them and they're like, get out of here. So I think you just end up with those people that it's like that catch-22. Nobody will hire you because you don't have any experience, but you can't get hired to get the experience. You know what I'm saying? It's like this whirlwind of well, nobody will let me play with them because I'm not experienced. Matchmaking would sort of fix that. It would come with its own host of problems, but LFG's matchmaking anyway, it's all random. You're going to get paired with douchebags through LFG. I have. Yep. So it's just no different. It's just off-site.
I'm that douchebag.
It's just off-site and less accessible. So all your casuals just are like, what? What's LFG? I don't want to mess with that. I think they need to add it, and especially for things like Prison of Elders as well. If you're going to expand something like the prison, you got to have matchmaking. It's just this nonsense of you're making your content inaccessible, which just seems like a really weird decision for stuff that's supposed to be so addicting.
How do you get casuals to become hardcore? Get them in the raids.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Get them thirsty for what they didn't get to see or didn't get dropped, you know? And the best part of raiding, once you are maxed out and you got all the coolest gear, is taking your buddy through VOG for the first time, and when Fatebringer drops for him, it's like he's excited, and that gets me excited, because now my teammate is better, thus we're better. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that a lot of people miss out on Destiny, is the sharing part of I've got cool gear, let's run something to get you cool gear. But without matchmaking, you don't have the opportunity to do that if you don't have friends or people to carry you through things for the first time. A lot of people will sit at light level 24, and that's a dead zone. Getting from all the way back up to the 30 area, you've got a lot of content that you got to kind of grind through by yourself now, you know? So it's one of those things where I think in the long run it could benefit the game, the longevity, the time the amount of time people stay on in one login. You know, if you had a matchmaking for a raid, think about how long the raid would actually take with 5 randoms and whatnot. But you'd be playing for 5 hours or whatever, trying to finish that.
Yep.
That's but you're participating or learning and the chance of gear, which they always dangle the carrot, but it's one of those things where I think in the long run that would benefit everybody.
Well, one thing that I could see, and I don't know, they might have to address this, is what if, say, 3/4 of the way through somebody has to go, they dip out, so now you're down somebody. Should matchmaking pick up and let somebody else come in and finish the last 25%?
That's what the major MMOs do. You have to implement that.
What if you're on that save though? You know what I mean? It's all these things are checkpoints throughout the week, anyways. So what if I dropped on Templars on Tuesday because we couldn't get through it, but now on Thursday I don't have a group? Maybe I'm gonna search for a group that's stuck on Templar that needs a player.
Yeah. You would just apply the LFG element to it. You say what part of the raid you're looking to do, and it only lets you do that if you actually have that checkpoint.
Right.
So I think the part of the business plan here has to be to give all these new people inroads to playing the stuff, and I don't think you can expect brand new players to wrestle with LFG or try to scrounge together enough people, because to me, you're either going to have people that don't play it, which is a lot of people. I mean, if we look at the stats, not a lot of people did the raids. Or you actually expose them to the content, and then maybe they decide they don't like it and they don't play it. That's always a better option, though, is exposing people to the content, and then they get a taste for it. They're like, oh, I just got to get a group together, and we could probably do this, instead of just never playing it.
Look at that formula based on trials. A lot of people that weren't necessarily good went in and tried trials, they realized, I need the thorn. So now they're encouraged to go back and run summoning pits 25 times and do the PvP bounty. And, you know what I mean? It's kind of, it wouldn't surprise me if they got more play out of it in that way, because now people that want the thorn are leveling up their last word, are grinding, which grinding is time on their game, which is good. That's what they want. They want you on their game as long as they can have you. And they brag about that all the time. They do not mind telling us how great their community is. And we're all grinding the same content. It's not, we all know what they gave us, you know? So it's, to me, it's just all beneficial. To them, it's a lot of money to try to hammer out all the kinks and, you know, all the loose ends that would come up with a matchmaking system. But then again, that's kind of what we pay them to do, is give us what we want.
Right. One other thing is, scrolling through the chat here, Wolf was talking about, what do we think about, Destiny adding a more human element, since it's mostly about aliens and everything non-human, like human enemies, or they even said down here about more modern, realistic weapons. Like the cost of it looked like a 5.56 AR, which actually I like the cost of. I did. I like the look and feel of it. It felt like a real AR, like it felt like home, I guess. But I do think they should start adding.
I would have taken it.
Yeah, I think they should start adding like these. I mean, I guess in game it would be nostalgic weapons, but I think adding some ARs, some M4s, or other humans in the game somewhere. I mean, obviously I think Brother Vance is a human.
I don't know.
I don't think there are any. Now that I'm thinking about it,
he's pretty pale for a human. I think he might be awoken.
Yeah.
You can almost call them weapons of the Golden Age, since that's what they all reference the past as, is the Golden Age. There's a cache of weapons of the Golden Age, and make it part of like a raid or a strike or something. Or
right. Well, I still think they should do I still think they should do like an exotic bounty specifically for the cost of. Like, you have to have the cost of to even activate the bounty, and then once you have it at some random point, just like the regular exotic bounties, you'll get an exotic bounty, and then you have to do X amount of things using the cost of, and then you can level it up to a blue, and then a green, and then a blue, and then a purple, and then an exotic. And I think doing stuff like that with some of these weapons, I think would be really awesome.
Yeah, when you could do something cool with the lore too, like all of our futuristic weapons aren't good because maybe this alien race or something adapts and they start resisting everything, and the only choice we have is to venture to some old outpost and find these weapons of the Golden Age that they don't resist because they're all old. Right. That would be kind of tight.
Yeah, that actually would be really cool.
Make some new weapons content driven. That'd be.
Just give me a Colt 1911. That's all I want.
Yep, I'll take one of those.
As for a more human element, I mean humans in general. Long time ago I talked about a little conspiracy story background about the Osiris group. Who knows? They could be humans left over from the Golden Age that split off a long time ago.
Right. Well,
Do their own thing. Maybe I could be that. That'd be a way to implement some.
I could be wrong, and I might be cross-contaminating information with that post on Reddit. If I am, obviously correct me. But somewhere, either on this post or throughout the Twitterverse or interwebs or whatever, I saw something about there being like either some type of human-esque enemy or something like that coming for like Destiny 2. I don't remember where I saw it to really quote it, but it was some new enemy that was supposed to be like human-like. I'm not sure if it was like with the new Taken King guys where they're like white and all twitchy like they're on meth, but or it's Guardians, maybe it's Guardians, not humans, but where there's like Guardian-looking enemies and stuff. I don't know. Like I said,
Maybe they got hit with the wrong side of the radiation. That the Awoken, the Awoken got the good radiation. These people are the Flood, essentially.
Right. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't remember where I saw it. Like the more I think about it, it sounded like it probably came from that post on Reddit. But regardless, hypothetically, I think that would be neat if all of a sudden you see these weird Guardians and like you gotta fight other Guardians in PvE content. I think that would be, kind of neat, honestly.
Well, we're getting pretty close here on time. Lana, what do you got planned next week, my friend?
Well, this week's pretty exciting. I got 2 big things going on. Tuesday is Rare Replay, so that's going to be a really fun day. My older brother lives in the same city as me. He's going to be on stream with me, so we're going to be playing games that we grew up playing together. It's going to be a blast. But all month long, this is pretty exciting. There's about 40 of us that are taking part in a One Life challenge in Borderlands 2. It's for charity. So the rules of a One Life are pretty simple. If you die, you delete the character. So whoever can get the furthest, you can try as many times as you'd like. I don't think I'm going to have the endurance or patience to get very far to compete with some of these guys. But the cool thing is whoever wins, there's a pool right now of about $1,000 that might even get bigger by the end of the month. It's going to go to the charity of the choice of the winner. So that's really exciting. So look for, on Borderlands 2 or Twitter, the hashtag #OneLifeChallenge. The number 1, One Life Challenge. So that's pretty exciting. We get streaming that all week. Obviously, Destiny and The Binding of Isaac has got its hooks in me. That game is really fun and addicting. But Rare Replay, that's exciting. I'm excited to get into that.
I'm interested to know what game are you guys gonna go for first on Rare Replay?
Yeah, what retro rematch are you most looking forward to beating your brother up in? Your older brother too. This is what's great is it's your older brother and now you got a chance to stick it to him one more time.
Right. Well, the funny thing is I hate fighting games because of him, because he used to beat the snot out of me in Killer Instinct. So I believe KI Gold is in the package, is in the Rare Replay. So maybe people can watch him just shred me. He doesn't like shooters though because of me, because I wrecked him in GoldenEye with regularity. So it's just funny how you develop that affinity, not only because you kind of normally have a natural skill in a game, but if you get your butt kicked a lot in the game, it'll definitely have an effect on you. So I'm sure my stream will love watching me get my head beat in by him on Killer Instinct.
That's gonna be great. I can't wait.
Nice. Well, I think
Rare Replay, I gotta hit up Conkers. I have to. It's gonna be mandatory, and I gotta hit up Banjo. I gotta hit up Banjo too.
Banjo, Perfect Dark. We'll probably get into some Perfect Dark.
Oh man, I love Perfect Dark. Just give me the Far Sight, and it's over.
Co-op campaign. That was one of the first co-op shooter campaigns I'd ever played. That and the Time Splitters game. So I'm really excited.
Great game.
Word.
The Rare Replay, that was a score for Microsoft.
Yes.
That was a score. I hope it launches well.
Man. Rare relationship could pay off very well.
I hope it launches well. With all my heart.
Word.
Alright, guys.
Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. I don't think kind of set our piece for the night. So with that being said, thank you guys for coming out. We obviously appreciate your guys' thoughts and inputs all the time. And we'll be back next Sunday, same time, same channel, same people. Probably some
Always
different
remember,
topics.
guys,
You can count on some Destiny.
More Destiny drama.
Yep.
Always remember,
Right.
guys, if you're watching us, feel free to ask anything in the chat. Love to get you guys interactive in this podcast.
Yep, and yeah, if you guys have anything throughout the week or whatever, literally our Twitters are all right here. So hit us up on Twitter, ask some questions. Maybe,
just send us your questions and we'll line them up for the next podcast.
Yeah, definitely. So with that being said, appreciate you guys, each and every one of you, even if you didn't chat. I know you're still there. So thank you guys for coming out, and we'll see you guys next week.